So, did you know that you can take a picture of what's in your fridge and then you can ask ChatGPT to give you a recipe? And then you can use a tool like Mid Journey to start to visualize that recipe. So here we've got some exotic concoctions. We've got blueberry and white chocolate sundae, and we've got a unicorn sundae, and we've got a padron pepper Doritos flavor. Has anyone created any generative AI recipes? Oh, okay, we've got one.
My wife has.
Yes, go ahead. What did you make?
What did she make? We are mostly vegan, so it would have probably been something like you say from the fridge. I can't remember exactly what it probably featured beans, because beans are really important, and some fried vegetables.
Great. So I'm going to start off with.
Did you give ingredients, list of ingredients and
Yes, and we're working on an app which will do that more to help with translation. Yes.
Wonderful. So we're going to start with a bit of a cooking demonstration. I've got my plate, which is aptly named Greed. So does anyone know how to make a sandwich? I'm going to run through making a little sandwich, following the instructions from ChatGPT. I've got a bit of ham. I've got some lettuce, if anyone wants to eat this afterwards. Soggy bread. But what else has ChatGPT given us? Of course, we need to glue our bread together with some super glue. There we go. Got to stick nicely. And then some rat poison. So here's a little bit of rat poison. Because there's so many rats in London, you just don't want them to nick your sandwich. And this is, of course, a real-life example of what can happen when you create an application on top of something like ChatGPT. So there was a supermarket in New Zealand called Pack and Save, and it was coming up with all sorts of recipes using people's ingredients, including Oreo vegetable stir-fry, yogurt dumpling guacamole, and can anyone guess what aromatic water mixes?
Like sparkling water?
Sparkling water was a good guess.
I think it's benzene.
Benzene?
Bleach and ammonia, maybe?
Yeah.
It says that?
Exactly, someone's actually paying attention. So effectively it gave the ingredient list for creating chlorine gas. So Pack and Save then replied to The Guardian that, of course, this is just a small minority of people who are hacking the tool, and they're going to keep fine-tuning the controls and making sure that only over 18-year-olds use this. However, if we look at the number of people who have followed their GPS and found themselves in the water and just listened to robots without using any common sense, I think we have to worry a little bit about people following robots' advice. So who is liable in this case? Does anyone have any points of view? You're in public policy, what would you say?
I'm not a lawyer, so
you're not, you're not a lawyer. But who would you go after? Would you go after Pack and Save or the silly user who's been hacking the system?
I'd like to go after the silly user, but I think that's obviously not.
Or it could be OpenAI. So I think it's a matter of everyone within this whole ecosystem is responsible and liable and should make sure that the applications are safe. And that's what the EU AI Act is ultimately providing. So a lot of these bots are being built on LLMs. And LLMs can do a multitude of different things, from text generation to classification. Here are a number. And they are mainly accessed through APIs, but there are some new tools that are being developed so that you can start to build applications in a no-code environment. And what are we looking for when we're building these apps? We're looking for something that's high performance and reliable. We're looking for something that's protecting your sensitive information, and it's non-toxic, discriminatory, and doesn't have any bias within it. However, the realities are somewhat different. So when it comes to high performance, often what we find with these LLMs are they're very convincing bullshitters. They will convince you that they know the truth and that they've added all of these resources and links, and you can click on them, and of course they're made up resources. So we have to become almost good journalists, good at fact checking and making sure that the LLMs aren't hallucinating. Another issue that we have is to do with its consistency. So if you slightly change the prompt, the answer will be completely different. And then the last problem that we have when it comes to performance is to do with language, because of course ChatGPT and OpenAI has been trained in English, but it needs to support languages all around the world. And yes, it does support different languages, but not to the degree that we're looking for right now. And then when it comes to sensitive information, is anyone concerned about OpenAI having access to your sensitive information or your business's information? So obviously we've had GDPR, and you might, in the last week, Dropbox has released a feature where it gives third-party access. So their AI tools are basically built on OpenAI. So it means all of your documents that you might have saved within Dropbox are now being fed into OpenAI. So we have to, as consumers, we have to hold these platforms accountable for having access to your data. Of course, you can opt out, but you have to be very, very careful about what settings you are on, and any changes of terms and conditions that might come through to your email and you have just, been opted into. So other.
That's automatic, or you have to opt out, or.
So they naturally opted everyone in, and then people had to opt out, but I'm sure they're going to switch that around because of issues there. And so countries like Italy have actually banned ChatGPT because of these issues with privacy. And if you're a company, you might be building an AI tool on top of an LLM, which is fantastic at coming up with new ideas, new innovations. However, you have to be careful about leaking your IP, your trade secrets to the underlying model, and also how your employees are using these tools. Are they feeding into it contracts with sensitive information? Are they redacting information? So all of these are risks that we all have to be concerned about. And lastly, we have issues around bias. So what an LLM will be doing is looking for patterns in order to make decisions. And what we don't want to happen is a number of toxic language being training the LLM. So for example, if you train your LLM on Twitter's language, you're going to get all of the controversial swearing and name calling, and already Bing has been answering back to some of these hacks and things like that. You also have harmful stereotypes that are perpetuated. So all of our biases then get perpetuated by the LLM. So we have to train the LLM to treat one another in a pro-social manner. Some examples of this is North Point's Compass tool that basically predicted criminal reoffending by incorrectly giving black defendants a higher risk of reoffending than white defendants. There was also Amazon's resume screening tool, which basically penalized resumes where there were female applicants because it was looking for similar applicants from the past. So anyone who said female or they're a woman were penalized. And then lastly, we had Apple's credit card with Goldman Sachs, which were investigated for giving men a higher credit limit than a man's wife who had a higher credit score. They then investigated this and used explainable AI to explain why it made certain decisions and were proven not guilty. However, that's the importance of explainable AI, trying to get AI to explain why it's making certain decisions, because often it can be a black box and we have no idea why it's making certain decisions. And you might prompt it, the next minute it might make a completely different decision. So these are all risks that we have to take into consideration. Here are a couple of the recent AI scandals. So you can see a number of the fines that have already been issued, and there will be more fines that come after the EU AI Act gets enforced. And lastly, we've got the Grace platform. And the Grace platform is a fantastic platform for enabling governance and compliance. You can register models, you can track bias and explainability. You can also track how people are prompting ChatGPT, all of your LLM usage within your company. And it's going to be compliant with the EU AI Act.